Yeah. And what happened in regards to, so when you came on in 2005, were you immediately in a position where you had associates coming in that were looking to you for advice, or was it still just you guys? How many partners are there?
Oh, so gosh, when I came on to the firm that I'm currently at now, I did not come in as a partner.
Got it.
So
okay.
I was still, although I'd been out for about 9 years, the deal was let's see how this works for a couple of years, and then if it works.
So you were just a very experienced lawyer. Yeah.
That's exactly right, and which was perfectly fine with me because I didn't know these guys a whole heck of a lot. They didn't know me, so there's almost this professional courting time that you go through to make sure that you want to be a partner with people.
Okay.
And so I was not a partner, and we were smaller at that time. There was 4 lawyers, and I got the case, and among other things, I was doing a bunch of work. And then after that, I think I established to them that, hey, listen, this is a sustainable career choice. I want to be here. And then that's what I was made partner. And then we've grown since then. We've probably doubled since then. I think we've got 9 or 10 lawyers now.
That's awesome.
Yep.
And how were you able to, what were the things that were important to you when you were, as much as they were vetting you, I'm sure you were vetting them in the same way. How important, this is colleagues in general, regardless if it's in law or if you're a partner or a number of those different situations, I think it's incredibly valuable to know the things maybe to look for when you're going to choose a place to work within, or who your mentor is going to be, or a number of those questions that you might have for yourself. What are some of those valuable ones that you had? Yeah.
So any advice that I would give would be the same that I would give myself. And if I'm going to become a partner with someone, whether it's a romantic, your spouse or a business partner, or you're going to own property together, something, is to check off some boxes that, number one, you have a common interest, okay, in your transparency, that you and I are going to be business partners, and we're doing this for the common good.
Common direction. Is that accurate?
Yeah. 100%. Yep. We're aligned in how the business is going to be run. Now, that doesn't mean you have to agree on every single component of it, but more importantly, that, hey, listen, we're doing this together because this is what our objective is. This is what we want to do.
I think it's important that you have differences in that 100%. Way, because you're going to complement each other. There's no reason, if you guys agree on everything, you might as well be on your own.
That's exactly right. What's the benefit of it? In everyone, it's the total is greater than the sum of the parts. This person has some great ideas. They're good with money management. This person is very good because they bring in a ton of clients. This person is good because they can deal with staff well. They have a good personality with staff. And you take all of those different things and you put them together and say, okay, these are my partners. The other part about it is honesty. You want to align yourself with someone who you trust. The storybooks are filled with people who get into business with someone, their partner's robbing them, or they're stealing, or they got some side hustle going on, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, okay? Yeah. Third would be is that they're good people, okay? And I'm a firm believer in people judge you by the company you keep. This is something I tell my son regularly, particularly when he was growing up and younger. Hey, if you're going to hang around a dope or a knucklehead, you could be the greatest kid in the world, but people are going to think, hey, you're a knucklehead too because you're hanging around, this guy who's causing trouble. So align yourself with someone who is morally and ethically consistent with your values. Okay? Yeah. And then fourth is be with people who make you feel better about yourself, who raise you up. And
that have interest in more than just themselves.
That's exactly right. I tell people regularly, I became a much better lawyer when I joined the firm I'm at now, because these were people who all were very smart, very bright. And here's the other thing. When I got there, I was like, I can't compete with these guys. I can't. These guys are, it's like running, okay? I became a better runner when I started to hang out with people who were better than me, because I had two options. I'm either going to be at the back of the pack, or I'm going to bust my ass to get up there and stay with them. And that's what I found, is if I found that I was competing and participating and playing with people who were as good as me or better, I would succeed. It's the Lions theory. It's the
You
Detroit
figured-
Lions. Yeah. Whoever plays the
fig-
Lions stinks, you know, because they play down to their level. So that's that.
You figured out my secret in this chair right here.
There you go.
Every person I interview.
Yeah.
So that's so cool to hear. I think it's so valuable in a number of different reasons, but I think regardless of what industry you end up going into, I think it's very, very important to take a look at the people that you're going to be surrounded with, regardless of what it looks like. Because I think a lot of people get so attached to, I want to work in this industry, or I want to work for this company specifically. And what you're getting at is more so what's more important than anything else is who are you going to be working with? Who is going to be your mentor, your main boss? Who are the people that are going to be on your team?
Right.
Because there's a number of people that could have completely polarly different experiences in the exact same environment based on their beliefs, what they want to achieve, what their goals are. And so I think that's very important for people that are getting started out to maybe vet more of that situation than what company or what industry it's specifically in.
Right. And I know that if I ever had an issue, whether it's business, personal, you know, you name the scenario, I could go to any one of my partners and they would have my back 105%. And similarly, if they came to me and said, hey, I need some help on this, or I got myself in a jam, or I've got, you know, what do you need? Let's go. And it's the easiest group of people to work with because we all get along. We all like one another. Again, I'm not saying we're best friends and we hang out on the weekends. You don't have to do that.
There's a respect.
There's a
mostly
respect. That's exactly right. And all the guys that we work with, they're all wonderful people, and I couldn't have been more fortunate to work with the group that I do.
And was that a transition period for you from going from making all, well, and I wouldn't even say that you were making all your own individual decisions, being that you were working, I'm assuming, under a partner at that point when you were at your initial start of your career. But what was that like when you guys are responsible ultimately for running ship? What was that transition like for you? Because you now are making all the big decisions instead of just, okay, I just got to go to court and do my thing here.
Yeah.
What was that transition like?
Well, it's this, you just kind of find yourself in it. It's not like one day they say, okay, you're going to do this, and you just find yourself talking to the client more. You find yourself getting calls more. You find yourself making decisions more that you weren't necessarily making in the past. And I don't know if this is going to specifically answer your question, but I tell my son regularly that the practice of law it's a pop quiz. Every time the phone rings, someone's calling you because they have an issue or a question, and you have no idea what the question is going to be at the other end of the phone, but you have to give an answer, and the answer needs to be right, and it needs to be responsive to their issue. And you just find yourself getting more calls. You find yourself being the resource for someone's particular need. And Ryan, I wish I had a better answer for you, but it just kind of happens, and that's just how it went.
Well, I think it's important to think about it in this way, where if you're teaching it, you have to understand it at a deeper level than if you're just doing it on your own.
Yeah,
you have to understand it to a much more core level and be able to explain it in a much more simple way for someone else to be able to understand it and use it themselves. So I think maybe that was a huge step that you took there, where you were beginning to teach it to others and explain it verbally to others, and it maybe made you understand what you were doing even more.
Right. And the other thing too is you have to know what you know, but you also need to understand what you don't know. And I think clients really appreciated that when they would call with a question or they would have an issue, because you want to be all things to all people sometimes. There's that inherent thing like, oh, I got to say yes. I have to do this.
I can help you. I can do it. Yeah.
You have to also learn what your limitations are, because if your ultimate goal is to best serve the client, you're not helping him or her by putting them in a worse position. Okay, so the idea being that if they call me about it, this happened this morning before I came here. I had a client, call me on a Saturday morning. Hey, I've got this issue with an employee. What do I do? And I said, it's not really my specialty, but my partner handles it. So let me.
But that's what you talked about with building your team, and
that's right,
knowing where your strong suits are and where you want to be spending your time, and ultimately benefiting them by referring.
Yeah, and so I say hang up. So I'll send a text message. Hey, Eric, I'm copying Tim on this. He's got an issue. He talked to me about it this morning. Could you reach out to him and guide him through the end of the situation? You know, and that's what you have to do, because I could run the risk of giving this guy the wrong advice. It becomes a even worse situation that he's got, and then he's mad at me, and that's not what I want. I want to give him the best advice, and I'm confident enough to know that I don't have answers to everything, and that's I make it very clear I don't know everything, and I rely on others to help me out.
Yeah, and now you're at a point where you're the head partner. You've got people that work with you that are looking up to you. And I want to hear a little bit about your approach to leadership and mentorship and how you feel they best absorb and learn what you're trying to teach them. So now how much are people shadowing you? How much are you ultimately teaching in terms of specifically saying you need to do this or you need to do that? Is it a lot of them following you and ultimately observing, or what are your thoughts and beliefs on your process there?
I think the leadership style is dependent on a particular situation and who you're dealing with. Okay, I don't necessarily one size fits all.
That's good. I agree.
The one thing I would say is, at least at our firm, and maybe even by family too, okay, because, you know, you have to be a leader at home, you have to be a leader at work and in public, etc., is to lead by example, okay? And I don't do anything, or I wouldn't have staff do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
Or have done in the past.
Absolutely.
Likely you have.
Yes, I promise you. So at our office, we have a culture that everyone pitches in, okay? And that means I'm lugging water to the refrigerator. I'm putting paper in the copier. I'm doing certain things that just need to be done because that's how you run the business, okay? The leader, I don't care who you are, leads by example. And if they see you doing it, it's all hands on deck, okay? The next part about it is to show them that you want them to learn how to do this. And you're not intimidated by showing someone who may be better at it. Or maybe the better way to say it is people are better at certain things in the office than I am.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic, okay? I'm secure enough and confident enough to know that this person is a much better writer than I am, or this person is a much better public speaker than I am, or this person has a much better understanding of how things work. Take it. Own it. And I'm confident enough to know that it's the best person for that particular job. For shadowing and mentoring, I always want to know what the associate thinks. So tell me, what do you think about this issue? What do you think we should do? What do you think we should say in response? How should we handle this? I want to know what they think, because if I don't ask or I don't inquire, they're just sitting there. Yeah. And it might as well just be me.
Yeah.
So I want to know how they feel, because, listen, they might have a differing point of view. And I'm very clear to them, there's no wrong answer. I'm not going to bite your head off, or you're not going to be, dismissed because it doesn't align with. Just the opposite. Tell me, am I missing something? My legal assistant, who formats all my documents and the briefs and everything, my mandate is, hey, I want you to read these. I want you to go through them. And if there's something in here that doesn't make sense, or there's grammatical errors that are confusing, you have to tell me, because I need to know how to make it better, so when someone else is reading it, they understand. There's no pride in authorship. There's no ego. It's, hey, tell me where I can get better. I'm the last person who's going to say, hey, you're just a secretary. I don't care what you think. I mean, that's such an ignorant point of view.
Yeah, and I think that they learn the best in that situation. Mm-hmm. I think it's one thing if you just spill out a bunch of information to someone without any context.
They're a robot.
Right. Well, and they might not be. I mean, how do you reference the 900 things that you were told at that point in time?
Right.
It's almost like they need to experience that situation on their own to be able to learn and then move forward with it. So,
and they help me by knowing what I'm looking for. So I copy them on correspondence to clients. My clients know who my legal staff are. They know who the associates are, because I include them all, because I want them to understand we're all working together.
Yeah.
And I want the associate, the legal staff to know, hey, this is what we're doing and why we're doing it. Okay. And you said it correctly, Ryan. Context matters and background is important because it helps them do their job. If someone just gives you an assignment and says, here, I just need you to do this. Okay, that's great. But why? Why am
It's the same idea of what you talked about with school.
Yeah, that's right.
You have all the rules, technically, from a technical standpoint, they should know everything on how to do it.
Right.
When it comes to application, that's what we're talking about context. The situation matters so much.
Why am I doing it? And if they understand why, their work product is going to be better.
It's having a purpose for what you're doing. Exactly what you said. It means something
That's right.
to you.
That's right.
You have to, I think there's a balance based on what you were saying, though, because you said you grew a ton when you stopped getting so emotionally invested in what was going on.
Yes.
Right. Or the dollar amount more so.
It doesn't mean that I don't care about the result.
That's okay.
Just the opposite. I mean,
that's a very important point. I agree.
Yeah, because ultimately, if something doesn't go right, it's on me. And I tell this to everyone. I'm the one signing the pleadings. I'm the one signing the letters. I'm the one sending the emails. And I'm the one talking to the client on the weekends or during the day or at night saying, hey, this is why we're doing this. This is the argument we're going to make. The buck stops with me. There's no one above me to fall back on. Yeah. So I have to be sure that we're giving the proper advice, that we're maneuvering the case the way it needs to be made. If something doesn't go right, I can't say, oh, well, my legal assistant, she sent it out wrong, or sorry,
Nor would you.
No, yeah. I mean, it's not even an option. I have to be responsible, good and bad. And so those are the pressures that I have, is that I have to make sure that all these things are balanced. I think I maybe even mentioned this to you on other occasions. Sometimes I feel like a short order cook more than I do a lawyer, because you're constantly juggling all these different issues, all these different cases, these appointments, these meetings, and you have to make certain that you're hitting all of the marks. And you only do that by having a strong team behind you who is putting you in that position to succeed.
Yeah, that kind of inspires a bigger question for me of how you manage everything that's going on. And this ties into personal life as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, now that you are at this level where you're managing a lot, you're traveling to a different state this day, you're managing your team another day, you have a $14 million case that you're worried about in the back of your mind, right? There's so much that's going on. And so obviously that was something that you had to have scaled upon and gotten better at over time. And so tell us a little bit about how you manage all of that at once and still internally are able to be content and happy. And when you need to go out to dinner with your family, you're able to do that and still relax and enjoy your time. How do you balance that?
It's a constant struggle.
Yeah.
It really is. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to dismiss it. It is very difficult because a lot of my work isn't in metropolitan Detroit. Just the opposite. I was in New York City Monday and Tuesday for work. The week before I was in Ohio. I was in Florida not too long. So it's just, I've got cases and projects throughout the country, which is wonderful, but it pulls you in all these different directions. I would say for me, it's just time management. It really is. I don't find myself with a lot of downtime. And the downtime I do, I like to spend with my wife. We're, hang out a little bit.
I'm sure that needs to be scheduled at this point in time, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make sure that I'm present when I'm there. So listen, I will tell myself, I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to do this. And I'm pretty good about it, shutting it off. But there are certain clients that when they call, I pick up the phone. It could be 1 a.m, 2 a.m, or 7 p.m. But those people that I answer to like that respect me, and I respect them. You know what I'm saying? And there's a mutual respect for one another. If someone's getting obnoxious, okay, because there are certain clients who will want to monopolize your time, and hey, it's Sunday morning, I will explain, listen, I'm on it, I'm working on it, let's talk on Monday. Okay, you do have to put up some barriers, or else they will run you through the ground. Okay.
Was that a hard thing for you to do? Especially when the way that you've spoke about your career, there's been a number of times where you were challenged, right? And I have to imagine that having the confidence to especially when you want business. You want the business to come in. You want to make people happy. You want to have a good reputation in the industry. At one point, did you start to feel more confident about owning your time and realizing that it's valuable mostly?
It was probably about 5 years ago. 5 years ago is when I felt that, okay, I have sustained myself and put myself in a position where I have more than I can handle, okay? And if you're going to be a client and we're going to work together, we have to put some boundaries up. Now, again, it's a moving target. It really, truly is. But I probably 5 years ago was when I said, you know what? I'm not going to jump every time a client calls. I'm not going to, freak out. Now, there are moments when I do. I get it. But I've tried very hard to reduce that. And I just tell the people, I'll talk to you on Monday. And what I also found, Ryan, that helps is that if you follow up and do what you say you're going to do and people trust you that you've got their interest, you're not out screwing around, you're doing the work just because they can't see you do it, you deliver, they tend to be a little bit more calm and
I think
relaxed.
Delivering proper expectations is a huge component to that. So I'm sure that you're way more explicit now on the front end. I find that like at the beginning when you're less secure, you deliver these fluffy, nice sunshine and rainbow expectations. And now I'm sure you're very clear and almost blunt to the point with how you deliver those expectations.
Just the other day, I had someone call and say, hey, I need you to do this. And I said, listen, I want to help you. I'm happy to help you. However, I'm starting a trial on March 13th. The week before, I'm going to be in lockdown. And the week of the trial, you're not going to hear and see from me. So I won't be able to talk to you until March 20th. If that doesn't work for you, let me know and I'll assign you to someone else. We'll figure it out. But otherwise, that's my availability. And they get it. And I do that more and more.
They respect the honesty.
And I just tell people there are only so many hours in the day. I'm one person. I can't double park. I can't extend it to 20 hours. A lawyer sells time. That's our metric, Ryan. We sell minutes of the day, and we're selling our our knowledge on law, and I can only do so much at once. And if I'm going to be with a client, I want to be present. I want to give the proper advice, and I don't want to feel like I'm being rushed or hustling and say, okay, here's it is, and then run to the next person. I'm not doing anyone any good.
So I want to know, what are some tangible things that you actually do to manage your time? Are you a big planner guy? Do you use your phone for all this stuff? How do you go about that? Because again, I want to give people takeaways in terms of you're one of the busiest people in the world. This is how you manage your time. They should be able to take some of these things and be able to apply it to their life as well.
We have, fortunately, my legal assistant very good at calendaring. So the technology, on the phone, and it all pops up. There's reminders. So my schedule is handled by my legal staff.
Professionally,
yes.
What about personal? Does that tie in together where you have two separate calendars that allow you to manage that, or how do you do that?
We put it all in one. So my personal calendar is tied into my work calendar.
So they have it. So
they do.
Okay.
And my life is so boring that I don't care. There's nothing exciting about
date night with wife.
Golf lesson, type deal. So, if they want to know that stuff, that more power to them. There's no secret. So so I manage it. When I go on vacation, when we go out of the country, what I do is I put the automatic reply on there and saying that I'm going to be out. But I also let clients know ahead of time, hey, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be out of the country. There's a time difference. I will have access, but I'm letting you know that it might be a little bit slow in my response. I've never once had a problem.
It's because, again, you're setting the proper expectations.
That's exactly right. If you let them know versus just going dark on them, they don't freak out, okay? So I do that. I also let them know if there's an issue, here's what's happening. I'll respond. I'll send a quick text or something. And then when we do go away, my wife, God bless her, has learned that I don't have the type of job that once 6 o'clock hits, it stops. It was a little challenging at first because her job is just the opposite. When she's done, it's like a blackjack dealer. She walks away, and she's not a blackjack dealer, but you understand the concept.
100%.
She doesn't have to deal with this stuff after hours. So what I'll do is in the morning, I'll get up, I'll do some emails, I'll make a couple calls, and I'll coordinate. And then I find that the rest of the day, if we're out somewhere, I don't have to worry about, oh, geez, I got to get back to this guy. You're exactly right, Ryan. It's setting expectations and adhering to those.
Yeah. So do you have any rules that you would say that you follow in terms of work life versus personal? Is it we need to do date nights once a week, or do you have any rules that you intentionally go by?
I don't.
No?
And I know there's so many successful people who do those kinds of things.
At the end of the day, you very clearly are intentional with your time, though. So is there a way that you do check in weekly to say, hey, do I need to do this, or is there a process that you follow in that way?
So it's interesting you say that. My wife and I have recently started to do quarterly meetings with respect to like finances, for instance. We wanted to sit down, and because as I was talking about business partners, you want transparency, you want honesty, you want mutuality of interest and goals. And I have found that sometimes you have to do that at home too. And if you have a spouse, you want to make sure that you're both similarly aligned as to, hey, where do I want to be in 10 years? Where do I want to be in 15 years? How do we do that? Well, our business partners, at our law firm, we sit down quarterly, we go through the books, we go through the accounts. How are we doing? Who owes us this, or what do we do? Same thing at home. What do we want to do at the house? Do we want to put some stuff in landscaping? Do we want to get a new piece of, do we want to go on a trip? Let's sit down and review those things. And so that's what I've been trying to do at home, and we've just started to implement that a little bit, and it's helpful.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that was actually my next question that I was going to get at, is how much do you feel that what you've done professionally turned into something that could be repeatable in your personal life?
Yeah.
Right? And do you find that there's consistencies within that of habits that you follow in business that apply so much to maybe how you mentor your son, or how you manage expectations with situations with your wife as well?
It would be, I think, if you were to ask me what's the biggest thing that you try and do at home, and it would be to, again, lead by example. So I get up early and I take care of,
I got your text at 5:02 the other day.
So I like to get up and take care of things. I want to make sure that the laundry's done, things are put away, that everything is organized, and it makes my life easier when I come home. I am on the weekends, I love nothing more. My downtime is I love cutting the lawn. I'd love to organize a little bit. I'd like to hand wash my car. Those are things to me that the cell phone is off. I'm not doing emails. I'm doing something that I really, truly enjoy. I get the satisfaction of what it looks like when it's done.
You're creating your organization at home when
That's right.
There's no organization at work. There's nonstop calls and you're all over the place, but you get home and you got the protractor out and you're mowing the lawn.
And it's, and I love to take a picture of the lawn and put it on Instagram, and those are the things that I'm like, oh, I can see the result, and it's something tangible to me that I can say, oh, I love it, and that is my downtime. That is what I enjoy, and my wife puts up with it, and I'm very lucky because she's a wonderful life partner, because she has the things that she likes to do, and I have the things I like to do, but we both respect one another's space when it comes to that. And we always kind of match up a little bit afterwards. So I'm very, very lucky when it comes to those things.
Yeah, I want to hear a little bit about what your value is in terms of course, having a partner is fantastic in a lot of different ways. But I want to get more into some of the details of why it doesn't even have to be a partner. Because at the end of the day, not everybody's going to have a partner or a wife or whatever. They could just have friends or people that are outside of the workplace. How important are some of the attributes that she has to help you do as well as you do professionally?
I think, and I've told her this, and I told her, many times while we've been married, is that I find that she makes me a better person. Okay. I find that she makes me do the things that I do. I in the sense that my goal as a husband, as a father, is to put my family in the best possible position to succeed. Just like my family.
A roundabout.
That's right.
It's a roundabout way of doing it. Yeah.
So I tell her regularly that I look at my role as a fiduciary. I have to I have to make certain that what I'm doing supports the family, okay?
And the mission of that family, like exactly what you guys talk about.
100%. Am I out there doing stuff that's reckless? Am I doing things that are a disregard for what we have created? Am I doing things that are going to put us in a position of compromise or prejudice, okay? And by that I mean, am I out blowing money on cocaine and hookers? No. Okay. Am I doing things recklessly by buying 5 sports cars that are going to drain us? No. I deliberately try and say, okay, this is what we have to do to succeed. Let's put our resources here. Let's plan this way. Let's do, if we're going to make some improvements to the house or whatever, let's agree on what we have. And making sure that we're provided. Do I have enough money to pay for the mortgage? Do I have money to pay for taxes? Do I have money set aside to pay for my son's college tuition? Take care of all the bills, take care of all the things, then what's ever left over, we decide how we want to allocate. And that, to me, Ryan, is how you do it. I'm getting up early, I'm organizing, I'm making sure that they see me take care of things. So they say, hey, this guy's doing it. I want to pitch in and I want
you
to
want
help.
to participate.
That's exactly right. Yes.
It's unbelievable how consistent it seems like your philosophy on how you joined teams with your partners and created that environment at work is the same way that you try to create that environment at home.
And I want to be clear, we do not agree on every single thing. We don't. And that's okay. And I don't want a yes person. I don't want someone who's just going to sign off blindly on everything we do. We absolutely have disagreements. We have differences of opinion on lots of things, economics, politics, religion, right? All those different things. But
which are all super controversial, is what's crazy is that you're willing to, you like the fact that there's contrast there.
Yeah, and I respect her views. I respect how she thinks, but at the end of the day, we both have the basic core common values that you need to have a successful marriage and relationship.
Yeah.
Is I trust her, I believe in her. She puts up with me. Okay, that's probably the biggest thing. She laughs at my jokes, and she's a good human being. And she's someone that I know, if something were to happen to me or something was to change where I was not in a position to do what I do, she would still support me and she would still continue to love me and be good to our son.
And what point did that transition for you where you maybe understood or wanted it to be more than just yourself? Because now you've expressed so much that everything that you do is not just about Christian anymore. Mm-hmm. It's about what's best for the family. Even if you maybe want to do something that, hey, this could put my situation at risk, or maybe I want another sports car, it's not going to be the best decision for the family unit. And so at what point did you realize that maybe you wanted to do things for more than just yourself?
Okay, I'm going to go backwards for just a little bit. And I mentioned this earlier on in our conversation that when I was a senior in high school, my dad and my mom got divorced.
Yeah.
And my dad pretty much just left. Okay, he did. He packed up, and that was really the last I kind of heard from him. I had a couple communications with him afterwards, but it was a very messy and ugly divorce. And he left my mom high and dry. Okay, and so my mom was stuck handling a situation that she didn't ask for, raising 3 boys, and she's a saint for what she did, okay, to put up with myself and my 2 younger brothers. And I saw what he did, and it was very, very difficult for me to reconcile his behavior because it's unreconcilable. I can't imagine just leaving your wife and your kids high and dry. You can have a dispute with your wife. You can divorce. I don't care. That's fine. But you can't leave them with nothing and just say, hey, you're on your own. So I took maybe the polar opposite extreme of that when it came to making sure that their needs came before mine. And their happiness is a derivative of mine. And if they're taken care of, if they have what they have, and we're in a good financial spot to succeed, I've got what I want. Okay, everything else will fall into place. And I'm very fortunate where I don't have that urge to be needy or wanty. You know what I'm saying? I'm very happy with what I have. I'm blessed. I'm fortunate, and I don't have that compulsion to have. Oh, if I don't have this, I'm not going to be happy. If I don't have that, I'm going to be unfulfilled. Just the opposite.
You have your core of this is what makes you happy, and all the other stuff is just icing on the cake.
I'm blessed with good health. I'm blessed with a wonderful family, a wife, a son. They do well. My son succeeds, and to me, everything else is icing on the cake. As long as they're healthy, they're happy. Hey, I don't care about the rest. I truly don't. And I know that sounds, silly, but it's true. I've got everything.
I think that's what allows you to perform with such confidence and such, I don't want to say disinterest, but you're almost like, it would be great if you won this $14 million case, but at the end of the day, is that going to impact how happy you are about your family or what your kids have done, or you know what I'm saying?
No, because as I've gotten a little bit older, and I turned 50 last year, your priorities start to shift. And you start to say, okay, what makes me happy? The things that make me happy at this age are different than what made me happy when I was 20, 30, or 40.
Yeah.
And to me, that's important because I don't want to be the person I was at 20, 30, 40. I believe in evolution. I believe that your ideas change. And I believe that your priorities take on a different perspective a little bit older you get. That's to me, I would feel like I was part of some like arrested development if I didn't have an expansion of my priorities or a change in my priorities now that I did when I was much younger.
100%. So I want to start to wrap things up with some pieces for people to take away.
Sure.
So I'd like to hear a little bit about, we've talked so much about some of the habits that you practice, and what I want to get it into, and this is going to be, I want this generalized.
Sure.
So what would be maybe the top 3 things that you would say to someone that is at that day one level for when you were starting out, you didn't even know what career path you were going to go down.
Right.
What are some of the consistencies that, again, regardless of you going into law, what would, or maybe some of the beliefs or practices or things that would be important for these people to take away to get started on their journey?
The number one thing that I would recommend to a young person who's starting off in their career is to find the successful people in your field and mirror them. Learn what they did to get to where they are in their spot. And it's okay to follow their lead or follow their direction. And you don't have to take all of the qualities, but definitely ask them, hey, how did you get to where you are? Exactly what you're doing right now.
It's easy to to follow a proven method.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly.
Yes. So that would be my number one is, hey, how did you do this? What did, learn. And again, I think I mentioned this, 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them proportionately. Listen, watch what they do, and take the good habits from that particular person and make them your own. Okay. That would be number one. Number 2 is don't be afraid to ask questions. Okay. I was in meetings yesterday, and I was telling people, I'm going to go back to math class in high school. There's no such thing as a dumb question, and ask. It's okay to tell someone, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, or can you explain that to me differently? Can you tell me in more basic terms what you're trying to explain? And people appreciate that. And if you are able to understand something or be able to ask to learn something differently, that's going to help you out, okay?
And that's in their way of learning. How we talked about the shadowing and all. Yes. It's them experiencing it and learning it the way that makes sense to them, because there could be 10 other people in the room that understand it perfectly, but if you don't, it's not valuable.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, so if I don't, and I tell clients this, if I don't understand the situation, I can't help you. So I need you to explain it to me like I'm a 4th grader.
Yeah.
And I'm okay asking that or saying that because I don't care. Tell me what's going on. That way I can help you. And number 3 is you're going to make a mistake. You're going to fail. You're going to trip and fall. And it's okay. And if you don't, then you're not really learning. We've all been in situations, Ryan, I'm sure you have as well, where You're like, oh, I really botched that up, or that was not a good result. Okay, how do I fix it? How do I make sure that doesn't happen again? And those are things that I would certainly tell people to be mindful of.
I think the same. You're still making them to this day, I would assume. And
probably, daily, you know, and it's like, oh shoot, I shouldn't have done that, or I got to do better next time.
And what's crazy is you just take it differently now. The point is you probably make the same amount of mistakes today as you did back in the beginning, but at the end of the day, you probably let it affect you more back then.
You nailed it, because what you think would be devastating 20 years ago, no, big deal. I'll deal with that. I don't even think about that anymore. It's like, oh, that happens every day. Now, sometimes the client may not see it that way. You have to reassure him or her, say, wait, it's okay. It's not a big deal. We'll deal with it. But yes, you're absolutely right. And that comes from confidence. That comes from experience. That comes from knowing how to handle, oh, shoot, I missed the turn. I got to go backwards and fix this.
Yeah. Well, and now I want to get into, I always like to utilize at least your expertise, right?
Yeah.
You're in law. And so what if someone was going to get into law, and I'm challenging you to do, I know those would apply to this, obviously, the last ones that we referenced, but what are 3 tips or 3 things that you could recommend to someone getting into law in particular that would benefit them in your field specifically?
Find an area of practice that motivates you to learn about, okay? Because we're fortunate where there's so many different areas of law. It's kind of like being a physician. You can, practice in any type of field that you want. So number 1 is find an area of law that you feel you could do for quite some time, that you like the client base, that you like the issues, and you like the nature of the work. That's number 1. Number 2 would be to don't worry about the money, okay? The money's going to come with the work that you put into it, okay? And if you focus on being the best lawyer you can be, everything else is going to fall into place. It really does.
Because where you're talking about the result.
That's exactly right.
The result, it could have been almost the same matter.
Yep.
Whether it was 13,000 or 14 million. And if you got the result either way, one, you make a lot more money, and one, you make way less. But the point is you got the result in both of those situations. And that's what it sounds like you're saying matters most.
And the third and final thing that I would say, Ryan, and this probably it transcends the law to anything, okay, is never compromise your morals, your values, and your ethics, okay? We work so hard to establish our credibility, our name, and our reputation, and that's personal, family, business. Once that's tarnished and once it's been damaged or challenged, you can't get it back. And clients will, unfortunately, from time to time, try and put you in a position to do certain things that you know are not correct. You absolutely have to resist and push back. And if that means that you lose a client, if that means that the client, says, hey, why won't you do that? You say, you know what? There's 30,000 lawyers in Michigan. Go find someone.
You can find someone.
You can find someone to do it
easily.
I will not ever compromise my values or my ethics or morals to put someone in a spot just because the client wants, because I was the one who had to pay for college and law school and student loans and put myself where I am. And I will absolutely never allow a client to ruin all the good work that I've done, because it just takes one bad action and then you're screwed. And the papers are filled with stories of lawyers who either got greedy or were blinded by fame or wanted to do certain things to appease a client, and it's come back, and then they lose their license, their sanction, their grief. I will not do it. No amount of money is ever worth compromising your character or your fitness when it comes to the practice of law.
And what's crazy to think about that whole point is I think people lack the lust of longevity, right? Because at the end of the day, that person that maybe was in law for 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it may be, no matter what the situation was, to an extent,
right,
they will never make as much money as you do in 26 years of work.
That's right.
Because of your longevity. So the point is, I think people need to value how long they're able to do this. And you don't get 26 years in this industry, like you said, without the consistency of who you are, what you believe in, and your reputation.
100%. Once you lose your credibility, you're gone. And it's having that degree is yeah, you'll still have it, but you're never going to work. No one's going to trust you. No one's going to want to hire you. Judges are going to know that you're the kind of lawyer who's just going to say and do anything. And it's not a way that I would ever want to go through life.
And like we said, though, that's a bigger win is what's crazy. Yeah. I think people lack perspective. They get so in the now, in the short term, that they don't realize, hey, if I just do this the right way for a longer time, I'm going to make more money anyway. So why in the world would...
You're playing pool. You got to think the shot ahead.
Yeah.
And consistently put yourself in the best position to say, hey, this guy's all right. She's an honest person, and everyone's going to do just fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Christian, we want to thank you so much for making the time to be here today. It's been awesome to hear your insights and pick apart a little bit about your story. And I hope that you learned some stuff and gave yourself a little more credit, because I've found in these interviews, people don't like to give themselves much credit, but you've done a lot of amazing things that I'm going to learn from, and everybody back home as well.
It's certainly hard to talk about yourself in a way that, maybe is a little bit uncomfortable and saying, oh, I did this, I did that. But it's because other people helped me to get to here that I'm able to talk about this. But this was fantastic, and I had a really nice time, and I appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk with you. It's the fastest 2 hours I've ever been to, so thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hopefully you don't send me the bill after.
No, you're not going to get a bill for this. This
you
is
said
on me.
It's a time thing.
This is on me, so thank you.
All right, well, thank you. So, guys, I just want to say thank you as well for making the time to learn today and believing in the possibility that life can be better, and challenging yourself to grow. Hopefully today you got one step closer from everything that you've learned, and never stop pursuing precision. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up our episode 4 with Christian Hauser. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Now I'm going to recap and go over the 3 most important, valuable things that I took from this interview. 1, the story that you tell yourself in your head is usually exactly how it's going to play out in real life. So what I mean by this is, throughout this interview, Christian talked about the stories that he would tell himself and almost talk himself into certain situations. So he outlined his situation where he was just getting started in law and had his first case for $13,000, he said. And the story he told himself was that, 1, his boss was going to fire him if he choked. 2, this was going to come out of his pocket. So he was presenting this and creating this situation in his mind that it was going to be such a big deal if he didn't perform at his absolute best. And what happened is he summoned the best of himself and ended up showing up and doing an amazing job in that case. And that's what continued to transcend throughout the rest of his career. 2, in any relationship that you have, whether it's in business or personal life, you have to make sure that you guys both have the same direction in mind. So when Christian would talk about his relationships, both with his wife and in business, when he talked about going into a partnership in his law firm, he talked a lot about making sure that everybody had the same direction in mind. Now, they all had differences. They all brought different things to the table. But at the end of the day, they were all on the exact same page in terms of where they wanted to go collectively. And that's how they were able to have the most success as a team. And where I think he also was able to develop such a special relationship with his wife, and where I think he was trying to give advice to us, is that in all of those relationships, they didn't have to be the exact same person. They just necessarily had to be going in the same direction. 3, if you're going to choose a career or something that you're going to pursue long term, it has to be something that you truly care about creating or providing some type of solution for. If you don't truly care about the cause that you're serving or the problem you're trying to solve, you're not going to be as creative. You're not going to be able to come up with new solutions, new angles to attack things, and continue to be excited about going to work and providing some type of value over time. It's going to be one of those things where you might have an initial excitement for it, but if you don't truly have passion for what you're trying to achieve, it's going to be something that you're going to burn out very, very quickly for. All right, guys, I want to thank you one last time for tuning in and watching this thing from start to finish. This was another amazing interview that I learned so much from, and I really hope that you're continuing to take more and more things as these interviews go on. We can't wait to show you next week's interview. It's going to be a great one. Tune into that one and never stop pursuing precision.